I've tried to rethink my hiring process from a metric standpoint in terms of if it's for a forever role inside the company, something that we're going to have for years, I want to get to firing the person as quickly as possible. And I'm sure this sounds terrible. So by all means, clip me out of context. I want to get to firing them as soon as possible. I want to find the reason why they're not a fit, or I want them to find a reason why they're not a fit and have them opt out or quit.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where corporate synergy means every voice matters, even if half of them start with, sorry, I was on mute. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I hope B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. What if the biggest bottleneck in your business wasn't your team, your budget, or even your strategy, but the way you think about work itself? Sounds dramatic, right? But here's the kicker. We're standing at the edge of an AI-driven revolution that's not just changing how we do business, it's redefining what doing business even means. Today, we're diving into the world of automation and AI, where groundbreaking tools are supercharging sales and marketing processes, and yes, even challenging the very roles we've built our teams around. Imagine an AI system that can fire off hundreds of perfect pitches in the time it takes you to drink your morning coffee, or one that's smart enough to handle complex outreach tasks without even breaking a sweat. Impressive? Absolutely. A little unsettling? Yeah, maybe that too. But it's not all sci fi dystopia or corporate buzzwords. This is about practical, game changing insights that could radically shift your company's trajectory. We'll tackle the big questions like how do you harness AI without sacrificing security? How do you adapt your business and your team to thrive in a world where machines are taking increasingly human roles? And what does all this mean for the future of growth, competition, and innovation? If you're ready to rethink how you work, what's possible, and how to stay ahead in a rapidly evolving landscape, then this episode is just for you. Let's get into it. On Tuesday, my founder guest was Luis Garcia, president of Pete. He shared how AI is transforming the landscape of workforce education, from personalized learning paths to keeping the human element alive, even in AI-driven training. Luis provided actionable insights for making training more engaging and effective. Curious how your organization can scale learning without a rise in boredom? This episode has the answers. He blew me away with the solution. It was absolutely fantastic. And then last Thursday on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, John Golden, Chief Marketing and Sales Officer at Pipeliner CRM, showed us how to transform sales with user-friendly CRM systems and smarter collaboration. From aligning sales and marketing to leveraging AI for better interactions, John delivered actionable insights for improving efficiency and relationships. Want to know how to make your CRM a tool your team actually loves, uses, and gets value from? It's pretty novel. This episode has all the answers. If you missed either one of those, go back and give them a listen. My guest today is Michael Greenburg, founder and CEO of Third Brain Digital Operations. With a decade of experience driving growth for businesses ranging from 2 to 100 million in revenue, Michael specializes in optimizing workflow, teams, and tools through cutting-edge digital operations and AI. Welcome someone who is turning automation into a growth engine for modern businesses, Michael Greenburg. Hey, Michael, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Jeff, thanks for having me.
Today is all about digital operations, remote work, and kind of the future of AI, especially as it comes to remote teams. As we think about that, what are some big challenges that companies have maybe on the operational side of the world, especially when they're trying to scale up?
Yeah, I think the first challenge people run into is who does what when. That's the very first challenge of most businesses is, oh, we have none of our processes written down.
Right.
Let's figure out what they actually are, what they look like, so that way we can assign them to a second or third person instead of just the first. But that problem, while it might be a little easier to solve in person because you can physically show somebody, remote work doesn't really make that any easier or harder because we have screen share now, we have Zoom, we have a lot of things we didn't have 10, 15 years ago
Yeah.
in the same way.
So what is a
But
good way that companies can start documenting those processes and get them, assigned to other people instead of just the one?
you got to start by writing them down. I know that really sounds like a simplification, but it is astounding how many people can go 30 years without writing down a single thing.
Yeah.
Flowcharts and checklists is how we like to talk about it. So we'll follow somebody through their work, we'll interview them as they do it, and our goal is to create a flowchart with checklists to create a sort of decision tree almost, but for that particular process.
Okay. And are you doing that for every process, or are there specific things that you really start with or look for, or is it just whatever the person is doing, get that written down and checklisted?
So that sort of depends on where we're brought in the process. So if our goal is to document the operations of a company, we are going to have to document all of the operations at some point. And so we're going to do them all first, and then we'll go back through and start focusing for either more information or deeper like interviews where we're actually going to be building things. But if we're just documenting operations, if we're just trying to solve for that like very low level piece, then we are going to either come in and document an entire department, an entire business from the top down, or we're going to go to say, okay, we've been brought in because we want to automate this one big process for our company. And in that case, if we know, hey, we're coming in to work with your sales and marketing team on scaling your operations, that is a fundamentally different problem than, hey, I just need some help, or
Yeah,
I
it
just
is.
want to know if things are working right.
Yeah.
And in that second case, that's where we can sit down and say, okay, where are the bottlenecks in this thing? What do we need to unlock? But when the goal isn't scale, we like to take our time and know the whole system before we get started.
Yeah. I mean, my perspective is that the goal should always be scale, but that's not really for every company,
I mean,
though. Some
that's
of them
not,
really just want to have that documentation.
yeah, I was going to say, if the goal is always scale, then you should be about 300 pounds heavier.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
scale is only good when you're ready for it. I think we lean too heavily on hyper growth as a goal.
You're probably right about that. And that's a really good analogy to think about that 300 pounds heavier and think about that as a person. What
Yeah,
would that do, to your body? And the reason that it wouldn't be good for you is primarily the underlying infrastructure is not there to support an extra 300 pounds. But
yeah.
if you grew, 4 feet taller, and that infrastructure grew with you, and the strength and the bones and the framework was there, it would not be that
Yeah.
implausible to add another 300 pounds.
I was going to say we might not want to stick with humans since the upright walkers we have learned throughout history, humans in fact do not scale up to, even when they have the genetic unlock and growth. Tall people die younger,
Sure.
and that goes up rapidly after they break the 7 foot mark, because they're just too tall for their hearts to work properly in their body. But if we swap it over to say a rhino, we can take on
Yeah, there
3,000
we go.
pounds.
Yeah. Or in our superhero universe, where if we're all superhero characters, we could all grow 4 feet taller. It'd be just fine.
Yeah.
That works. Oh, very cool. Explain to me digital operations. It's a term that I've heard quite a bit, and different people have different definitions of it. And I think it's something that you hear in the marketplace. And yeah, digital operations are growing, or we want to move that direction. What is it, and why is it crucial for businesses who are looking to scale and really have that explosive growth?
Yeah. So digital operations are a nebulous term. That's why everyone has different definitions. But they can really be summed up by business operations that are digital. And what that means in practice is it's not quite IT because it's probably not like permissioning out computers and stuff to people
Yeah,
or setting up firewalls. It's not like data analytics or business consulting in a traditional sense, and it's not necessarily like when we talk about sales ops or rev ops, marketing ops, those sort of things. All of these touch and are adjacent to digital operations, and in a specific context, a digital operations team may interact with those things, or in a smaller business, even manage those things. But
that makes sense.
digital operations is the combination of the business processes that happen in the digital world and the infrastructure that we use to support them. So that's our project management tools, that's Zapier, that's our any sort of business process automation versus like data automation for integrations between tools. But then, as I've learned, for most companies, they don't have an integration provider, they don't have an automation provider. And so then we step in and we're doing the business documenting side of things. And then we carry through and build the underlying technology and infrastructure because there's no one else who's really there to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And thinking about that automation and particularly AI, how can companies effectively integrate that into their existing workflows and systems without major disruptions?
If you want to get major returns, you're going to need to do major disruptions.
That's a good answer. I like that.
That's only because what I found is like when you're designing a workflow, and we have a 5 level system that we use to describe different systems and roles and processes in terms of how automatable they are for AI. And so level 1 is all silos, and level 5 is that AI automation, the end state. Most companies are at like level 1 or level 2 inside of their business. Level 3 is a unified data layer. So that way, all of the information that an AI might need is available to it, and we can plug in very quickly to then build on
Okay.
top. Most companies are not at level 3. If your company's greater than 5, 10 years old, I guarantee you're not company wide. And if you didn't choose the right tools from jump in that past 5 or 10 years, you're not going to be now either. Most companies are somewhere in that 2.5 range.
And so what are levels 2 and 4?
Yeah. So level 2 is integratable cloud. So everything is in the cloud. We can integrate it, but we have not built all the integrations yet. So we don't
Okay.
have good, clean, unified data throughout the company. We just have the right tools picked out to do it.
Okay.
And so, like a lot of times, it's, oh, everything we bought has an API, and we can connect those APIs, but we do not know what our business process looks like enough to know how the data should flow through those sources. Or we have somebody who spends half their day copy pasting from one to the other. We'll call that copy paste hell.
Yep. That sounds pretty familiar. And what about level 4? Once we get past the unified
Yeah.
data layer.
Automated with a human in the loop.
Mm.
So generally, level 4 is where we end most builds with clients. The idea is that to go from level 4 to level 5, you generally have to fine tune some sort of model or deploy more advanced AI learning. And so, in order to make that jump, you have to actually build up a large data set inside of the process of high quality, clean data. So that way you could train the thing.
That makes sense. I like that. And some processes would be pretty easy to get to that level 4, and other ones would be they could easily be a multi-year project to get
Oh,
them
yeah.
there, depending on the complexity and how critical they are to the business.
Yep. And the biggest thing that we run into is, oh, maybe there's an on-site server running Windows 2000 in the back closet of the main office, and we're not going to be able to get around to getting rid of that in the next 10 years. It's too vital to core processes. The developer who built it is gone. The only way the company is going to replace it is by building some ground up system to replace it. It becomes too complex.
Yeah.
In those rare cases, we have to build around it. But most of the time, at like a department level, so a team of maybe 50 or less, it's about 1 year per level.
Okay. Wow, that is a long-term project, and it really has to be a commitment. It's not something you wake up today and go, okay, digital operations, we're moving there. AI is going to be the end all be all for the company. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes people think that just it's going to be an easy conversion, but there's a lot that goes on to get to that point.
Yeah. When I think about that year, it's probably 30% fixing things up, documenting them. And then there's maybe 20% of actually building things. 50% is adoption. It's getting people on board, it's getting them aligned, it's getting them okay with using automations or AI instead of knowing that they did it. And so it's getting them to trust this new technology. And then it's training them on new workflows as needed and getting them into and comfortable with the system and making the million little edge case things that need to be covered,
Yeah,
taught, and adapted.
that's a tough one. Digital transformation is hard. And just in thinking about the healthcare space, going to electronic medical records, huge issue for so many facilities and doctors and things like that. And
Yeah.
it's the process. It's the adopting technology. So the software wasn't the initial problem. But in working with a lot of different doctors, their solution was if I have to use this thing, one, I don't want to use it. But then if I have to, I'm still not going to use it. I'm going to hire somebody to follow me around with an iPad and put all
Yep.
the information in there. So it's one of those things. And I think that's changed some over the last 3 or 4 years, at least in some places. But I think we all experience that across our companies of trying to bring in a new process or wanting to do something different. And people are like, no, I don't really want to do that. I like the old way because it works. It's easy. It's the comfort level. So how do we get around that and help them, adjust and really adapt to those new processes and adopt them so we get value?
So the first question you got to ask is, can we get around that? And especially in legacy organizations, there are people that are 5 years or less from retirement. You're not going to move them.
That's true.
We had a client recently where they had acquired a company. One of the key account managers that they wanted to really get processes documented and help organize the onboarding process better. 3 years away from retirement. Her husband retired just in the past year. We know she's got another grandkid on the way. She's at the very end of her cycle. And we said, look, we just spent 2 months working with you, and you want to know why we didn't get anything done? Remember at the beginning when I said, hey, this employee, there's a chance she's not going to want to budge. And if that happens, we're just going to have to wait. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, in their case, they said, okay, great. We're going to do what we can to document in the meantime, and we'll revisit this sort of transformation in another 2 years.
Wow. It's a long time to wait.
Yeah. Oh, I think they're making a bad mistake in the long run, but that's not really something you can tell somebody in a sales call.
Sure.
It's a guaranteed way to lose it.
Yeah. And there are plenty of people who may be closer to retirement age that are embracing technology and fully on
Oh,
board with that.
I
And there are
put my
young
dad
people
in
as
that
well.
bucket.
Yeah. There are
I'm
young
helping him
people that push back.
digitize now. Oh, the young people are even worse. There's a lot of older people who are like really interested in technology, and they had to learn how to use technology, so they're willing to learn again, and they
Yeah.
enjoy that process. But for a younger person, for somebody in Gen Z, if they aren't already in love with this stuff, if they aren't already trying to understand how it works, you're pushing a boulder up the hill, trying to get them to make that jump in some cases. So we have a course that new hires go through. It's about 2 weeks long, called the Crucible, and it's just a bunch of courses where they have to go on their own and learn about AI and automation and how we work, and they learn on their own and they submit notes every day. And by the end of that 2 weeks, we know who's really like motivated and who's willing to learn on their own and build, and who's just in it for a paycheck and a cool sounding job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really smart. First, not really an age thing, but more an attitude thing. And second, having that process in there, you're really finding out in 2 weeks, is this person going to be a long-term fit? And if the answer is no, you know right then and can take action and get somebody in that will be, instead of figuring this out or making that determination or decision 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the road.
Yeah. And if we have any hesitation, we can leave them on for another month. But we know, oh, flagged yellow in the Crucible. We're looking for somebody who's really batting out of the park. There's not much room left to stumble.
It's really smart to think about that. And everybody should be doing that in their business, making sure that you're hiring smart on the front end and get them in, get them out as quickly as possible so you don't waste time.
Yeah, I've tried to rethink my hiring process from a metric
Yeah.
standpoint in terms of if it's for a forever role inside the company, something that we're going to have for years, I want to get to firing the person as quickly as possible. And I'm sure this sounds terrible. So by all means, clip me out of context. But I want to get to firing them as soon as possible. I want to find the reason why they're not a fit, or I want them to find a reason why they're not a fit and have them opt out or quit. And so we have company values that we read out in like a call and repeat, and it's a little culty. And I have absolutely had somebody go through that ritual with the company and then say, hey, this company is not for me. I'm going to opt out here. And I don't know if that was the values or that was the ritual, but it worked either way.
Either way, that's a good thing. And I know people may have opinions listening, and a little controversy is not bad. But I think that can be really good if they're not a cultural fit, if they don't buy into that. Much better to know on the front end than for them to take the job and then bail out or not be committed, because that drags the entire team down.
Yeah. And that's, at least as I've gotten farther into this, I hire more for young, hungry, smart, adaptable, autodidact. And if they can teach themselves and they want to double or triple or quintuple their income, I can give them a path to do that.
Yeah.
And then I'm just looking for people who know how to follow that path.
So a little bit similar to Zappos and what they did, they would go through the interview process and get to the end and then offer the candidates, you can have the job. Or if you want to bail out right now, we'll give you $1,500 and you can walk away right now. And that saved them significant heartburn later on, because the people that weren't serious, they weren't all in, they would take the money and run. And that saved them probably thousands, millions in making bad hires. And the people that said, no, I want this job, I want in, I'm ready to do this, those were the people they really wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I had heard their story about buying people out to get them to quit, but I had not heard the buying them out to get them not to start. I like that quite a bit. I'm not going to start paying people not to work for me. But
Not a great precedent, but
yeah, I know. But look, somebody stays with me and they go to exit. I just told a friend the other day, like, I don't think I'm in the business of making US dollar millionaires. I'm probably not going to make that many of them for other people outside of like clients who already have money or active businesses and stuff. And even in those cases, they're probably already millionaires when they hire me. I'm just making them a million more. I know that's the case for most of my work. I can make native currency millionaires. I can make millionaire in Filipino pesos. I can make millionaire in Nigerian, I think it's Naira, or Kenyan shillings. And That is a much more attainable goal for me, and that changes somebody's life the exact same way.
Sure. Sure.
Um, so at least for me, I may not pay them for not coming to work for me, but I make sure that they get if we have some massive win, they're going to get the biggest bonus of their life working for me.
Yeah. Which brings up an interesting point, thinking about different locations globally, but also domestically. What are some of the big benefits for embracing remote work? And is that still something that you do? It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And how do you maintain productivity and collaboration?
So my team's 100% remote, 100% global. I think we've got 3 team members in the US, including myself, and the majority of our team is just spread out around the world. Got team members in the Philippines, Kenya, everywhere. That's pretty much been my model for the past decade. As the world has developed and talent globally has improved, more and more roles that I used to hire for in the US, I hire for in other countries instead. I think in general, they are just as smart, just as well spoken, just as talented, and half the price outside the US. I think you do get more done in an office. If the whole company is in one office, it is very clear to me you are more productive as a company. But it is not clear to me that productivity gain is worth the cost of a US team.
Ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish Big Pond, delivering a world class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership insights guaranteed to transform your business and operate world class. Small Fish Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to your clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion: that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step by step frameworks and time tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and then turn them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Grab your copy today in print, ebook, or audio at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. Plus, remember, every book sale supports charity. All profits go there. Always have, always will. So dive in and make a difference. That's interesting. And I think that's something really good to think about. I was having a conversation with somebody recently just about global teams, and we do the same thing in both companies and have people in remote locations. But it is about productivity. And so if you hire somebody and they're half the cost, but they're 1/3 the productivity. So for example, you hire one person here and it's 100%, but you have to hire 3 people over there to get the same output.
Yeah.
Then is it really cost savings? The numbers would say no. But I think there are anomalies everywhere, and you can find those really high performers. But how do you think about that in productivity and decide whether to do something remote? I guess in your case, they're all remote, but do something international versus domestic.
Yeah. This goes back to is this a forever role? Is
Hmm.
this somebody that I'm going to be hiring long term at the company, or is this a contract freelancer that we need to bring in for something specific? If it's a forever role and I can wait 3 or 6 months, then I'm going to hire the person overseas and I'm just going to train them to do the thing. And they're going to be better at it than the person that I hire in the US who already knows how to do it because I trained them myself. And they're going to be better suited to the way I do things. And they're going to be cheaper, way, way cheaper to maintain.
Okay.
If it's not a forever role, or if it's a right now thing where I can't wait and I need that skill and I can't get it abroad, and that means it's probably something that's like customer facing or otherwise communication related. So, like, they need to intimately understand Native American English communication for customer facing work or client facing work, which is separate from being able to speak technical documents. Um, then that's when I look to Americans, but I'm going to look to Canada first.
Hmm.
So if I need the competent English speaker, My hiring is Canada, South Africa, UK, and then the US. Because Canada, South Africa, UK, all much cheaper than the US, all have accents that are palatable to the US market.
Sure, sure. I'm surprised. I would think that the UK would be more expensive, but your experience is that it's less.
Oh, the UK has one of the lowest wage rates in the world. The UK is closer to Mississippi in average wages than it is New York.
Interesting. I didn't
It's
know that.
it's one of those things you don't know because you would think they are much more prosperous and stuff. In reality, the UK is largely middle and lower class, just like most countries, and that social safety net that they've built is very important.
Hmm.
So they don't
Makes
get
sense.
health care.
Yeah. That does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And Canada is always a good location. South Africa is fantastic. We do a lot in even South America, South and Central America.
Oh
Good
yeah.
time zones for the US, especially.
Yeah, and you can 1 in 100 candidates spent a year abroad in the US during
Sure.
college or high school and has a perfect neutral accent or has cousins in California or something and goes and visits them. Yeah, it's if I'm going for the forever roles, big fan of South and Central America. Colombia, Argentina in particular, but Mexico
Yeah.
also excellent.
Yeah.
Brazil.
Yeah. Great people all over. And I think that's interesting when you think about forever role versus short term. And I probably would have thought about that as opposite, like thinking
Hmm.
long term forever role would be a domestic hire
Huh.
and contract would be international. But
Yeah.
just thinking about my own businesses, it's really, we've done both in both locations. So it's not really geographic in the way I think about it. But contractors, you're right, they've got to be somebody who can really hit the ground running. And typically they're going to be for a short term. There's a project or there's something specific that we need that is not a forever need. It's, we need this done in the next 3 months. So
Yeah.
that does make a lot of sense.
I just hired for next 2 weeks. And that is not one that I could hire in the US for because everyone in the US charges way too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to get it done and it's going to be great. It's going to cost a few $1,000s.
So as you start looking at one using people in roles and then start looking at automation and digital operations, automation, AI strategies, what steps do you take to ensure a smooth implementation process? And maybe even,
Hmm.
how do you identify, where to do that in the beginning?
At the role level or at the department level?
Could be either one. I'm thinking
Sure.
more starting with the identification. How do you identify the right areas where automation AI can have the greatest impact for growth and efficiency?
Yeah. So we're looking for repeatable, hyper consistent processes. So the fewer edge cases they have, the more we can deploy quickly because we don't want our system to error a lot. So, like email routers take a long time to set up properly because you can get a million different kinds of emails.
Yeah.
But outreach setups, so sending emails to people for lead gen or for other things like that, those are very high repetition, but with very low levels of variance because you don't have inputs. You just control the output. And when we can find something like that where there's very discrete input output pairs and they aren't set up in a way that like prevents us from being able to automate it because there's too many varieties of inputs or too many varieties of outputs, then that is generally going to be a good starting point.
That makes
And we've
sense.
got a checklist. Oh, you're doing a sales process. Okay, what's your follow up? How are you doing outreach? How are you doing lead research? There's when we get to specific types of companies, specific types of departments, we've got a bit of an edge having done it a few times.
Yeah. And that's how you're really making that process smooth and implementing the automation and introducing that to the team is with the checklists.
Yeah, so we're also going to do quite a bit of training. sort of the process that we go through is we're going to start with that documentation. Then we're going to build the thing. And when we're building the thing, we're doing iterations. And so every week or two, we're taking it back to the team and saying, hey, this is how it's working now. This is what it looks like. What do you think? We're getting that feedback throughout the process. And then once it's ready to go to a beta or once it's ready to go live, we are going to create video walkthroughs. We're going to create written walkthroughs. And then we're going to do live training with the team. And then we've got somebody in their Slack or in their Teams or direct shot on email for them to reach out to at any time when they have issues.
Okay.
So it's pretty handheld.
What are some of the most innovative automation and AI technologies you've implemented for clients, and how have the tools transformed their operations?
Ooh, great question. So I think the most transformational tool we've put out is actually for a test bed company that I set up. And so we ran into the issue, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, we ran into this issue where a lot of our clients are bigger companies. They have a lot of infrastructure, a lot of momentum already. We can't do all the cool stuff that we want to. We can't build those level 4 and level 5 systems because we need to get them to level 3. So we did set up a test bed and we took a process and it's at level 4.5 now and it's going to level 5 at Q1 next year. And it does digital outreach specifically for podcast guest placement and blog placement. And so we took the process. I used to run a company that did this, so we had a really well documented process already. And we set up a system where we would have somebody listen to every single episode and make sure that it was a perfect fit show and that we could craft a pitch that really fit from one of the few templates. And so we had an AI transcribe the episode and then an AI read the episode and see if it fit the guest profile. And it could go through 3 or 4 episodes then and see if any of them had a good match where it could then pitch in one of the templates it already had. And so we were able to take a process where somebody could send about 10 to 15 pitches a day. And this same system we've now since deployed to cold outreach for sales and many other client use cases. But we're able to take it from 10 to 15 a day to sending 100 a day.
Okay.
And so with sales, that's normally like 20 or 30 really personalized messages a day or outreach a day that you're getting out of a rep, 40 or 50 if they're really good. And we're able to get that up again 2, 3, 4 times. And so we can, with podcast guesting, where it's very intensive because they have to listen to every episode, we're able to 10x the process. And next year, we'll be able to 100x or more. Right now, though, a human has to look at every podcast and say, is this actually a good fit? And then a human reviews every pitch before it goes out and says, yeah, this is a good pitch. I want to sign off on it, or makes a few edits. And so once we get that human out next year, I'll really be able to let loose. But
yeah, that makes sense. I think
sales
that's
outreach.
important, having that step and having the human in the loop to make sure that what you're sending out is what you want. And if it's not, then continuing to train the AI that, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. Here are the changes, and it gets better and better. And before long, it starts really putting out something that it doesn't really have to be monitored as closely because it's just doing the same thing over and over again.
Exactly. And we can do that same thing in pretty much all sales outreach processes. So B2B sales has become a big one where it's, okay, we can come in, we're going to document your process. You've got a CRM in place. Great. Or you don't have a CRM, let's get one in. And then, okay, as soon as you have those two, we can start offshoring. So let's bring in some people globally to start helping out your sales team. And while all that's happening, we're mapping it out. We're figuring out, oh, you know what? You actually have one niche of clients that is really easy to find online. Let's set up an outreach campaign to them. And I'd say that's probably where we make the most impact, just because revenue growth. can't beat it.
Of course. And
Yeah.
AI is certainly continuing to advance. And the last year and a half has been the fastest I've ever seen technology move. How do you see that continuing to reshape the business landscape in, say, the next, I don't even want to say 10 years. We'll just go in the next 5 years.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a step ladder, plateaus, and then real steep jumps. So I think we're at the point with AI now, and I know OpenAI, to date this recording a little bit, recently made the announcement that they are approaching AGI, and some of their internal team members have said, we have reached it.
Right.
I was just talking at a dinner party the other night with some friends, and I tried to coin a term, functional AGI, to describe the idea that we have sufficient intelligence that if we Frankenstein it together with the right memory databases or the right business logic process, we have AGI for the majority of use cases. So it's not like a plug and play remote worker. You can't have AI in Slack that does all the work for you. But if you set up a system that does something like listens to podcasts or listens to founders go on podcasts and then writes a personalized pitch selling to their company based on what they talk about on air. When you set up a system like that, you are replacing what somebody would do otherwise. You're replacing what a BDR would do on their day-to-day.
Right.
And I think the only thing that's stopping every company from replacing the majority of their SDRs and BDRs with AI is a twofold thing. One, they don't have the infrastructure to actually support that shift to like an automated network because they don't have the data unified inside of their sales and marketing and customer support. And two, they probably don't have a clear enough understanding of who they're targeting in their sales process or in their marketing to be able to develop a unified book of language to have that AI be able to speak to. But if you're selling, say, a productized service, if you're selling something like podcast production, you can absolutely replace your BDRs with AI today.
Yeah.
Your salespeople may be another few years away. But I think we're already past that point for a lot of things. And so it's about building the tools and infrastructure to utilize the resources we already have. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. So if no new AI came out for the next 5 years, we've still got a lot of room to run.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're really slowing down. We just got inference time compute this year, which means now the machine can think. It can think hard and think longer on a problem. And the longer it thinks, the better the answer gets. That's like massive.
Yeah.
So more tools deployed, more infrastructure and things deployed to replace things that people do. But then I think we are heading into the next phase where as those things get deployed, whole jobs get replaced. They don't come back. And we're heading into that turbulent time when the Luddites rose in the past industrial revolution, when people get put out of the job by a technology and they may not want to update their skills or figure out what the next thing is.
Sure.
So if you're an SMB marketing manager listening to this, I would be concerned for my job. If you're a sales manager, I would learn how to manage a team of AI or like how to automate the BDR process. Because
Yes.
I can tell you at my company, one BDR manages 5 to 10 profiles on email, LinkedIn, Twitter. And so that one person is now 10 people.
Right. Yeah, we're definitely starting to see that in a lot of different areas. And think about when cars came in, you had people who were working on fixing wagon wheels and
Yep.
making buggy whips and things like that. They were put out of jobs, and some of them were maybe artisans, really good at what they did. Technology moved forward, and just because those jobs didn't exist anymore, it didn't mean that there weren't lots of other jobs created. And I think we've seen that even over the last 5 years. Jobs that people are doing today didn't exist 5 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago. And I think if we look 5 years forward, we're going to see new roles that don't even exist today. And so there's
Absolutely.
big opportunity.
100%. I would say I would not try to build a new digital service business right now and intend for that business to last beyond 5 years.
Yeah.
But it is a great time to start. I don't know. It's probably a great time to start like a factory, a capital intensive business that can be heavily automated already. The AI has already come for their jobs. It's probably a great
Yeah.
time to be a factory owner.
Especially if you can start something like that now and start it with the automation versus legacy companies that have been doing this for 100 years, trying to figure out how to bring automation and technology into their operation. That
Yep.
seems much harder than just starting that way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's the longer things have been done a certain way, the harder they are to change.
Yeah. Thinking about data security is something that is still talked about quite a bit, and I think a genuine concern for many companies, especially larger companies. How do they keep data secure and protect sensitive information when they're working with not just AI but also remote teams? And as things continue to be more automated, how do they think about data security and protecting that information?
And I think one, you got to know where your data is going. You've got to understand the tools you're using. My favorite example is for a long time, and this has likely changed, but for a long time, Zapier was not HIPAA compliant. And so anytime somebody wanted to automate something, they were like, oh, yeah, let's just use that. Nope, can't use Zapier. There's no, and you have to know, oh, even the tool we use to pass the data between the two HIPAA compliant tools has to be compliant as well because the data goes there. And so that one, you have to know where your data goes. But two, I think you have to understand the tools used. I was just having this conversation with my dad today. He was telling me, hey, Michael, we've got all these reports that we want this person to do. Don't give them just direct access to them. And I'm like, yeah, no, duh. We're going to make a copy. We're going to give them a copy of the files. They're digital files. It costs us nothing to make copies. There's no
Yeah.
reason we would ever give somebody who just started working for us direct access to any important business information like that. We should always partition it. And so if you're using tools like ClickUp, as an example, has unlimited file storage built in, it might be as simple as saying, okay, we are not going to use Google Drive. We're not going to use OneDrive. We're just going to use ClickUp for all our file storage. Or saying we're just going to use Google Drive and then making sure it all gets stored in the right
That
place.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
That's a
thanks.
big one, thinking about what's connecting things in the middle and everywhere that data transverses, making sure that the solutions are compliant or meet your security requirements.
Yep,
It's not just as easy as plugging things together with some middleware.
exactly. I wish it was.
Don't we all?
That would make my job. It would make our lives a lot easier.
Of course, of course. Where can people learn more about you and about Third Brain online?
Yeah, you can check us out at thirdbrain.co. That's number 3, rdbrain.co. You can find me at Gentoftech, GENTOFTECH, everywhere online.
Excellent. And we'll make sure to link that in the show notes. Michael, been incredibly valuable today. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Jeff, thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Michael, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. You can learn more about Michael and Third Brain Digital Operations at thirdbrain.co. And that's 3RD, thirdbrain.co. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. We've got lots of stuff over there for you, full video podcast episodes, so you can see what we look like and all the crazy things that happen. We've got outtakes, we have training, we have shorts, and that's at Champion Leadership is our YouTube channel. Thought leaders share. Everyone who shares this week gets a free trial of Plant GPT. It is the latest AI bot that pairs your office plants with their perfect playlist. From smooth jazz for succulents to punk rock for petunias, your greenery will never be greener or greenier. I've heard it both ways. What if AI could transform your contact center into a powerhouse of personalized customer experiences? Join us next time as Alex Levin, co-founder and CEO of Regal.io, reveals how voice AI is revolutionizing customer service and reshaping the future of human AI collaboration. And what if your speaking gigs could become your most strategic growth lever? Join us next Thursday as Blair Bryant Nichols reveals how founders and leaders can transform their speaking platforms into powerful tools for brand visibility and business success. Don't have a speaking platform? We'll fix that in under an hour. I will see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.